many different directions, having a lot on your plate and trying to figure out what to do. And what I always say to my clients is it's not rocket science at all. You know your stuff really well. I can help you put together a framework and think of a way to think about your marketing that hopefully will be really helpful. So without further ado, I think I will share my screen so I can show you a few slides here. There we go. All right, so let me get to my, actually, that was the other one. There we go. So I'm a marketing strategist, and what that really means is many of us want to jump in and do your social media or revamp your website or, jump in and do some email marketing. What I really enjoy and I really like to work with my clients on is stepping back a little bit and starting to think strategically about your marketing, because then your marketing tactics, your hands-on actual actions that you take will be so much more focused and hopefully effective if you identify a few pieces up front. So that said, I'll talk to you a little bit here about what marketing can do for your business. Many of you have tried many different aspects of marketing, and you may feel like, oh, I just don't know where to put my resources. I feel like I'm hitting my head against the wall. I was just talking to one of my clients right now who's a dentist in Hyde Park, Massachusetts, and she just said, I'm so tired of spending money and not knowing if I'm doing anything to help my business. And so we're putting a nice plan together. So what could marketing help you do? Does help you increase that revenue, helps you increase awareness of your product or service. Sometimes it's a little hard to measure that, but awareness is sort of a key first step in your marketing. Drawing new customers in, really important. That's sort of the whole essence of why we put together a marketing plan or spend any money on marketing, and help your business grow. To me, one of the best situations I can be in is a business that has tried it. So they've tried doing some marketing, they may be a little frustrated, but they get that, wow, it doesn't happen overnight. And I may need to do a few things and put some time in and some effort to actually get to that next step. And I love partnering with those businesses. To me, it's a wonderful thing. So that said, these are what marketing can do for your business. But what's really important, I think, is it doesn't happen overnight. And you really kind of need to stick to the plan you put together. To me, those are really key elements to marketing. So as Michaela mentioned, feel free to write any questions in the chat. Here we go. I have to page down? No. There we go. All right, so let's talk about the marketing process a little bit. This is, all sorts of people have different processes they think about when they think about marketing. This is the one I happen to use. So putting together a marketing framework, and I'll explain exactly what I mean in the next few slides about that marketing framework. Then brainstorming all sorts of marketing tactics. These are, okay, what am I actually going to do? And then here's, I think, a really important piece, prioritizing them. So you may have this list of like 20 things on it, and you may feel like, I just don't even know where to start. Do I start at the top, in the middle, at the bottom? I don't know. Prioritize them. So I tend to work with my clients on putting a priority on each marketing activity, high, medium, or low. Is this high and it's going to actually, impact me right away? And if I do this, this will help me do other things. Medium, got to do some other things first. Or low, you know what? 6 months or later, I'll get to this. And that's exactly the other piece of it, is to add a time frame associated with it so that you understand, okay, this is high, but I could be doing this for the next year. So those are just examples, but prioritizing is really important. And then you actually have to implement. And that's one of the hardest parts. You're torn in so many different directions. And it's just, there's a lot on your plate as business owners or folks that are involved in the marketing aspects of your business. So It's figuring out what is practical when you want to implement. And that's an incredibly important word there, too. Saying you're going to post on social media 3 times a day when you know it actually is never going to happen that way. So you post 3 times a week, then stick to it. Be consistent about it, and maybe you can build it up over time to do more. Just an example, but that's an important piece of implementation. And then finally, measuring. So what is what you're doing having an effect? You do have to give it enough time so that you can see if it's actually affecting your target market in some way or not. And here's the best thing I think about marketing these days, especially digital marketing. You can stop doing something, take it right off the list if you feel like it's not really reaching your target market. And you can augment some of the other things that you're doing that are getting some engagement, that are reaching those target customers that are out there. And you can do it just like that. You can turn on a dime. I love that aspect of being able to change things. Back in the day, I've been around for a little while now, you would have to, it's like sort of righting the ship. You'd have to turn the big cruise ship, as opposed to now, I feel like marketing is a speedboat. You can change at any time, and boy, you better be ready for the effects. That's all. So this is the framework that I use, and let's go into that a little bit more. Very simple. Again, not rocket science. I look at what. So what are you offering? Is there some value in it for that target customer? What sets your product or service apart? Are there benefits? Are there features that you want to highlight? That's the what. The where. So what does your market look like? Is there a geographic component? So are you a neighborhood business, or are you online and it actually doesn't matter except for shipping a product, that type of thing? Do you have a specific niche? So that's kind of all encompassed in the where. The how. So pricing is a really important element of the how. Are you a high priced? Are you middle of the road? Are you a low cost, low price provider? How do you position your product or service in the market? And sort of how do you get your product to the market if you're a product type of person? How do you get it to your customers? And this one, to me, is all the crux of the matter here, the who. Who is that target market that you're really trying to reach? And we'll talk a little bit more about it. What are their characteristics? So where do they hang out? How can you reach them? And to me, those are the most important pieces that there are. Once you have these pieces, you can put together a marketing strategy that can be really helpful. I'm talking about a lot of marketing words that all of you may feel like, oh, I've heard these before. I don't know what to do with them. I'm more than happy to send my slides afterwards, talk to people afterwards. Just let me know. It may be helpful to just get this out there and think about it, and then come back with some questions too. So again, more than happy to do that. I'm not sure if anybody's asking something in the chat, but feel free and absolutely unmute yourself if you have a question as we go through. So that's it. Now we're getting into the specifics here. So what do you offer? And what I'd suggest, if you don't have a marketing plan at the moment, write down a few things while we're talking. So what is it you offer? How is it valuable to your customer? Does it solve some kind of a problem that they have? Does it meet one of their needs? And does it give them something that they want? That's really important to write this down in whatever format you are comfortable. And that way you get it in your mind. And to me, I find every business owner knows this what like that. So everybody knows it. They've got it down. They understand what really, sets them apart. So the next piece of this is the who. Who will you sell to? When you define your ideal customer, so like put some characteristics around them, it really helps figure out, as I said before, the best way to market to them. So what I try to do is understand just different characteristics. Do they live here? Do they, have something about them? So, for example, I'm working right now with a used bookstore in Arlington, Mass, and we really worked hard on identifying a few target customers. So they've got mothers of young children. That's one of their target customers who are coming in to buy children's books, but actually end up buying one for themselves too. Okay, so we've got one target customer there. Then we have some folks that come in and they may be later in their careers and they're really coming in because they enjoy a particular topic. He told me an interesting fact too, which is historical romance is flying off the shelves. I don't know what's going on there, but very interesting. So we're trying to build out these personas to get a good feel for what kind of social media posts should we put up? What kind of information do we want on their website? Do we do an email newsletter every month? Hey, what kind of information should we put in there? So as we build these out, we're starting to figure out, oh, okay, here's who we're targeting. And don't be afraid to target really sort of tightly, sort of really hone in. A lot of us want to be all things to all people and feel like that's the best way. I don't want to cut anything out. I want to do it all. I will actually counter that with the more tightly you define who that target market is, the better it's going to be for your marketing because you're figuring out who it is that you want to buy your product or service. So that said, if anybody is interested, usually at this point, I get people to give it a try. Identify the characteristics of your ideal customer. Write these down. Who are they? What do they do? Why do they buy? If you start to get in, this is where the sort of the psychology comes in to marketing. Are they somebody who has a lot of extra money and that's why they're buying your thing? Or are we, cutting it to the bone these days and they need what you're offering, but they're not willing to pay a higher price? Okay, keep that in mind. So answer all these questions for yourself, for your own business, and start to think like your customer too. And so once you've identified this target customer, you have one of these important building blocks of your marketing plan. You've identified something incredibly important. So anyone want to share at this point, or is it too early in the morning and nobody wants to? Feel free to unmute or put your something in the chat, but I'm not sure I can present and see the chat at the same time.
No chat questions yet, Sarah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. All right. Well, we'll just keep going. Keep these questions in mind as we go through. Now we're thinking about the where. So where are you selling? Where are your buyers? Is your business geographically based in such a way that you need people to be walking by like a street like this? Or is it all an online type of situation? Think about this where and sort of what markets are you in when you're selling your product or service. And this, again, helps you inform how you're going to do your marketing, I think. So everybody else can, try this out. Do you sell online or in person? What geographic areas will you target? I think I mentioned I'm working with a dentist right now, and her target market is really a 1 mile radius around her office, and it's very saturated with dentists. And so identifying some differentiators for her practice are going to be really important. She told me a great term that, not being in the dental world, I didn't know, but she's not a drill and fill kind of business. It's like, okay, I didn't know that was a thing, but good to know. She wants to develop real long-term relationships with her clients. She wants them to bring in their family members and their friends and anybody basically who lives in this 1 mile radius. So that's something you can do for your business too. And here's the, during what we'll call quote unquote normal times, people may be walking by and coming in your business. We're hopefully coming out of that. We won't have as many restrictions very shortly. So during COVID, how can you reach those local customers, folks who may not feel as comfortable walking around like they used to? So that's where sometimes an online presence can come in a little bit more. Maybe your website becomes more important. Maybe your social media also becomes more important. Hopefully, we'll get to the point where we even out a lot more because people are coming out of this strange time that we've had. So it's just thinking about sort of where you're going to find that target market. Then we get into the how. So do you deliver? Here's again some of the online types of presences. Do you have a website? Wix, GoDaddy, there's a bunch of sort of do-it-yourself options that are great. Yes, of course, you could spend lots of money to get a developer to put together a website, and that may be exactly what you need, especially if you need sort of a more complicated, you want to transact business actually on your website, you may want, to get a developer to work with you. But you can also do pretty well with a Wix or a GoDaddy type of website. I always call websites the validator. So when I learn about a business, one of the first things I do, and maybe I'm showing my age a little bit, but I go to their website. I want to see, okay, what are you going to tell me about it? These days, a lot of people may go to social media, and whatever your platform is of choice, you may decide that's what's going to be the big validator. Is it going to tell me you're an established business that I can trust, or do other people know about it that I know? That referral piece is so important in business too. So that's what's in the how that we're trying to figure out in terms of your marketing. And in the how, again, is the pricing element. How are you pricing? Are you very just market competitive? Absolutely valid place to be, but just figuring that out is really important, I would say. So that said, the other piece that you want to think a little bit about is competitors and markets. Was there a question, Michaela? Are we good?
It was actually me.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'm curious, when you get your website up or you reach people through social media, how do you know that you're actually reaching those folks in order to determine your target demographic?
So this is where some of the metrics piece is really important. So your website, depending on if you do have a Wix or a GoDaddy website, they will often give you analytics as a part of that. So you can go in and see, hey, how are people getting to me? How many people came? And you can identify what, past months, past 7 days. How did they get to me, as in what search terms did they search for? Because you can then turn around and make sure those search terms are in what is called SEO, your search engine optimization. Those are sort of words that you can embed behind the scenes or even up front in your website and make sure, hey, this will help make my entry move up a little bit higher when people search for that particular term. And similarly, with social media, there's a whole lot of interesting metrics that you can find out as the owner of a particular account about how are people coming to you? How do people get to me? LinkedIn, for example, if you're a business to business and that's sort of where you're focusing, you can get some great stats from LinkedIn. You can, of course, get that from Facebook and Instagram, who are owned together, as well as Twitter. So there's a whole lot of interesting metrics you can find, and that starts to tell you, hey, who's coming to my website? How engaged are they? And there are some terms in there that are interesting. A lot of times, I heard a great term the other day, vanity metrics. So vanity metrics are how many likes did you get? And what sort of the whole focus is shifting towards the actual engagement with your customer or whoever's coming to your social media site and your website, that kind of thing. You want to have an engagement. You want them to stick around. You want them to look at all the different things you have to offer. So the engagement stats, I think, are much more interesting to kind of take a look at. So does that answer? Perfect. All right. That sounds good. All right. If anyone has questions, of course, please feel free to ask. So this is an important piece, competitors and markets. So I have this, image here of Burger King and McDonald's. They co-locate, they put themselves right next to each other all over the world. And I often think to myself, why? Why are they doing that? Well, one of the interesting things is they're giving you a choice, right? And many of us are very distinctly one way or the other. Either only go to McDonald's, only go to Burger King because you like a certain thing. So they've decided, well, we're going to put that competitor, that competition right out there. I don't always recommend that that's the best way to sort of compete with others, but it's important to keep an eye on your competitors because you do want to know what they're offering. You kind of want to be aware, hey, are they offering something different and new, and I need to be able to compete with that? I also think it's really important to not necessarily just follow what your competitors do. Think, outside the box for yourself and your own business. You each have your own differentiators, what sets you apart, and, capitalize on those. But keep your eye on the competitors and what they may be offering, especially if you're in a very tight pricing market. I have a very good friend who does translation and interpretation, and that market is incredibly price sensitive. And so when a competitor starts to lower their prices, she has to be aware of it right sort of at that minute, because it's very quick for people to switch companies. And you don't want to be sort of caught not even aware that pricing has changed. So that may be true of many other types of businesses and markets as well. So the other thing to keep in mind too, in terms of competition, is we're all sort of competing for the dollar too, at least here in the US, because people only have so much money to spend, and they could make different choices with their money. So, for example, you think you run a restaurant or a bakery or a cafe, and you think you're competing with other bakeries and cafes, but you also have to think about, you need to kind of make a compelling argument and reason for people to come in, because what if they're going to take that money and go away for the weekend, or go, back in the day, see a show, go to a movie. So people only have so much disposable income. So we need to make a compelling argument for whatever your product or service is, that they should spend the money for it. It leads to those differentiators, what sets you apart, and it leads to making sure your pricing is able to be backed up. You can be a high priced type of offering, absolutely, but back it up with great benefits and be really clear that people would get the best value from you and why. Or low cost provider, make sure you're coming in, but you can make a little profit too. So we want to make sure you're a viable business over time. So this is all there to say, keep an eye on your competition. It's a great idea, but don't spend too much time there, because you want to spend more time on your own business. I think that's really important. So little exercise you can do for your own business is try to think about what is different about your business. I have actually a whole another presentation about identifying differentiators that's coming up in a few weeks if you're interested in this particular aspect. But just the short course on this is, what sort of makes your product or service valuable? What is it about it that makes it something that would be valuable to your customer? What benefits do they get? Is your product or service of higher quality than everybody else? What will make the customer get to that point where they actually buy from you? So these are all great things to think about. And the one thing I would say too about this is, kind of go a little deeper. I have a great example that I often use in terms of differentiators. I used to work for about 20 years for a consulting firm. A lot of very bright folks doing infrastructure consulting to the government. And so we were really interested in rebranding. and had a firm come in, worked with us on rebranding, went out and talked to, I don't know, about 50 of our clients. They come back and do a report after talking to the clients and said, so every single client we talked to said you guys are smart. And here we are, patting ourselves on the back. Of course, isn't that great? And then they turned around and said, and that's not a differentiator because every other competitor can say that we're smart, they're smart as well. They all have great ideas. They all have lots of great experience. So they can say that too. We had to turn around and dive deeper into it and figure out what was real.
Calling from Becky Healthcare.
There we go. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Good. All right, we just did a little muting thing. All right, so again, this one is a great one to do on your own, spend a little bit of time, what sets you apart, and then maybe work with somebody else to say, to have them say, you know, the whole, I don't know if you've ever heard this, the so what. Okay, so you're, you know, low cost, or you're the only one of these businesses on this street. Have somebody say, so what to you, so that you can figure out, okay, does it really resonate with a customer? Does it really, you know, get to something that is a need of the customers, and sort of dive in as much as you can. I think this one's a really important element of a marketing plan as well. So thinking about the buyer's journey, you may have heard this terminology. It's a big talk in the marketing world, but just sort of understanding that oftentimes you can't just go out and say, buy my thing, or come and, you know, let me give you services. Buyers need an awareness of who you are. Who are you? What are you offering? Why is that different? Then, you know, and they have typically a problem of some kind that they need a solution for. So then they start to think about, oh, okay, I've heard about you and I've heard about these two others. Let me think about that. What does each one offer, and how does the solution work for me? And then they get to a decision point. So oftentimes that takes a little while. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with one social media post or one website. You know, looking at your website, it takes a little while. So think about that buyer's journey as you're putting together, okay, what should I be doing in my marketing? So there's a lot. Now we're getting into the actual brainstorming the ideas piece. Okay, there are many ways to reach your customer. As I've mentioned, website, you all know, social media, posts, having followers. An important one is Google My Business. A lot of people use Google as their search engine. And if you claim your Google My Business listing, you have control over it. You can update your hours. You can put images and photos up there. You can say whatever you want to say about your business. I'd suggest always sort of claim that and make sure you're in charge of it. Same is true with Yelp if that happens to be something that would be useful for your business. You may be interested in getting some publicity in a local publication. These are, you know, many are online, some are in print still. A lot of times local publications are very interested in highlighting businesses. So if you know somebody, reach out. It can't hurt to ask if somebody could highlight you. I love that. Email marketing, I feel like, is one of those ones that people feel like, oh, nobody does that anymore. Well, it depends on your target market, I would say. A lot of times people are very interested in reading emails, and it depends obviously on what you are selling and if you think your target market would open the emails. But I would say do not discount it right off the bat. Direct mail, postcards, flyers, you know, those types of things. Advertising, and that could be in a print type of capacity or social media advertising. That is something that could definitely, depending on who your target market is. I would highly recommend video of some kind. Everyone seems to be so interested in watching, you know, videos, regular videos, TikTok videos. There's a lot of different video, but the one great thing I think about today is that many of us have a device that can take really great video. So you don't have to get a videographer to take short videos that could then be working for a social media post, that kind of thing. And it just, it takes a little bit of time, and it depends on what your messaging is. Sometimes you need to kind of write down, okay, what's it going to look like, little storyboard for your video. But it is, I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a great visual way to get across what you're selling. So don't discount that one either. Online directories, attracting the attention of bloggers. I mentioned I'm working with a bookstore right now, and we were talking about the sort of this whole group of people called bookstagrammers. So they're really interested in sort of having curated, really well laid out images with new books in them and some sort of information about new books. I had no idea until we talked about it just the other day, and there was always interesting things that you can find out about. And so we're trying to figure out, hey, how could we get some bookstagrammers in to the bookstore, and what might they need? Maybe a little sort of area where they could highlight their new books and take photos or videos. So again, all it highlights is be aware of sort of different ways to reach your customer. You can highlight what you think would be the most effective ways and focus on those. Don't feel like you have to take this entire list and decide on something, for every one of these. No, the whole idea is prioritize and really focus in on the ones that are going to reach your target market, I would say. Question, Michaela?
Sarah, what do you think out of this list is maybe the top one or two things that a small, maybe mom and pop business should seek, even if they're, so in over their heads doing the day-to-day things? Like, what's the top two things that they need to do to reach their customers?
So if I had to say the top two things, I would put up a bare bones website so that your name is up there and what you offer. It could be one page, but just as I was talking about, it's the validator. And then I'd probably claim my Google My Business listing. That would be my second one, just so that when people search, they come up with you. And the one thing I would say about that too, I just had this experience last night, make sure it's up to date. Because if you're a restaurant and you used to have different hours because of COVID, make sure you're updating it if you're starting to change those hours. So I was trying to get some takeout last night, and I thought a place was closed, and it turned out it was open. So it was a great, story in the end. But if I had gone by that Google listing, I wouldn't have gone there. So those to me would be the very top ones, and then sort of think about it from there. Because I get it, it's hard. These are hard things to do, but you can sort of figure out how to do a quick and dirty website. Google offers some tools where you can do some websites as well. So don't feel like it has to be the greatest website you ever saw. All you want to do is put that website out there so it validates that you're a valid business out there and you're open. That would be the important thing. And the one thing I'll say, you didn't ask me for three, then my third would be post something on social media and just do it consistently. Even if you're posting once a week, do it consistently. So you at least they know you're still there. I think the big question these days is, ooh, is that business still there? I feel so bad. This has been a really tough time. If you just keep saying, hey, we're still here, we want to welcome you in, we're open 4 to 9, just say that. And that way, I think it's just important to get it out there. People aren't venturing out as much as they did, pre-COVID. So give them a reason to come in and at least have it be updated hours. Good. Figures that out. Okay. So you want to brainstorm the marketing activities. Just giving you some examples here. I had a client who's a chiropractor, and he was interested. He found that email marketing was not the thing for his client base at all. They were not interested in giving their email addresses, but they were very interested in, perfectly happy to give them their mobile number. And he wanted to tell people about when the practice was closed, holiday coming up, or that they could make an appointment via text. So we set up a text messaging platform, put in his customer data, did it all, it's called simple texting, the one we ended up using. And they send out sort of they do all of that, sort of making sure it is following the rules of what can you do via text, people have to opt in, all that kind of thing. They took care of all that. And now he can tell people, hey, my office is closing, early for the 4th of July. And then he can also get people on board to get appointments whenever they, happen to need to. And they've seen a good uptick in business because of that. So there's, think outside the box when you brainstorm these marketing activities and figure out what you think might work. Sometimes creating a program for loyal customers, loyalty programs are called, they don't have to be some, sleazy kind of program. It can just be, hey, every 5 times you come in, I'm going to give you a sticker with our name on it. There could be easy things you can do that are not that expensive too, but it's really great when you can thank loyal customers. So these are just examples off the top of my head here. There's many different things you can do, but this brainstorming idea is really important. Once you brainstorm, this is an example of working on sort of prioritizing all of those those brainstormed activities that we put together. So this is a business I was working with last year that is music therapy. So they had so many different offerings through so many different age ranges, and it was almost too many. It wasn't almost, it really was too many. And so with this business, I ended up focusing on the higher revenue services. Okay, you can be all things to all people if you really want, but let's focus in on, sort of your top 3 music therapy services that have the best revenue. You could say, I want to do my highest profit ones too. So this is just an example. So you decide. They also wanted to increase visibility across all the markets. So when their music therapists were going out to different classes, they decided, you know what, at the end, why don't they say every time, hey, we have another class, that offers X, Y, and Z that is different than this one, and do that at the end of every class. Not a hard sell, not a sleazy sales pitch, but just sort of creating more awareness and visibility across people who are warm, interested in what you offer. And then really important for this particular business, repeat business was really important to them. So developing stronger and deeper relationships with their existing clients was a really important piece. So president called every one of them to really figure out, hey, are we meeting what you need? What could we do to improve? And as much as you may have heard this and it may seem like, that's trite, it actually goes a long way. When the president of a company, and it doesn't have to be even a big company, but they're taking the time, knowing, torn, many different directions, many things on their plate, but they're interested in what you have to say as a customer, I think that really shows value. It shows how important the relationships are to the company and that they really like your business. And so something to keep in mind. So that was just an example of a particular client I've been working with. We talked a little bit earlier about the whole idea of measuring the effectiveness. And you may come to me and say, so how long do I need to do this? It kind of depends. Little pat answer there, but it really does depend on what you're doing. Is it a totally new sort of target market that you're looking at? It may take a little bit longer. Do folks know about you? So maybe it won't take as long. Is there something you're offering that is new and different? Or are you really highlighting your differentiators more? I think that's a great way, sort of give it, let's say, okay, I'm trying something new on social media, I would say give it 2 or 3 months. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's important. And again, if you're just posting once a week, maybe you're posting 2 times a week or 3 times a week, give it a little bit of time. I don't decide that I'm going to go buy something just like that. I need a little bit of understanding. And hey, I saw that. Oh, I saw they had an interesting offer like 2 weeks ago. I'm still not going to do it, but 2 weeks from now I might. So try different things. And are you getting more customers through your marketing? Ask some questions. When somebody does come in new to you, buys something new, ask them why. Ask them how they found out about you. That's great information. That's market research in action that can be really, really helpful. Hey, I searched for X, Y, and Z on the web, and you came up, and you were the third one down, and I decided that that's yours was more interesting than the others. Hey, look at that! You did a great job. So, measuring that effectiveness is really important. Talking to your customer, great way to find some more information out, I would say. Um, Keep in mind the customer service is really important. I was working with a restaurant that was only doing takeout, and I started to see some reviews. And actually, two of the reviews I saw was they're inconsistent with their mask wearing. And so I called up the owner right away and I was like, you have got to really work on that, because that's something that people are not going to come if you are not, and this was during the time where it was absolutely mandated. No inoculations were available. And so, sort of keep in mind what customers are asking, or telling you when you ask them or when you see reviews. Listen to that feedback. If you can make a change, that's a great thing. The one thing I would really caution you on is sort of engaging in a disagreement in any way over social media. Try not to if you can. If somebody writes a negative review, I would just take the high road as much as possible. Say, I'm so sorry. We'd love to make it up to you. Come in, give us a call, whatever. And that can be the end of it. So it really doesn't help anybody when people engage. We all know there are people out there who write negative reviews, and it is what it is. So do the best you can. Ask for people to write positive reviews when you have a very happy customer, and that can be really useful. Just treat your customers as you'd like to be treated in general. I think that's, to me, one of the best ways you can do your business. If you can make a change, great, based on their feedback, fabulous. Make sure you tell them you made a change. Make sure they know that their feedback was really valuable. I think that's really helpful. All right, so now I'm bringing this all together. So we've talked about a whole bunch of different pieces. What I tend to do is put together a one-page marketing plan. At the top, this is for a hair salon I was working with, happens to be located in West Roxbury. I do a lot of work with the city of Boston. I have a contract with them, and they pair me up with businesses that need marketing assistance. Many times, these are businesses that couldn't really afford these types of services, and they get some federal community development block grant assistance to be able to offer some services. So I work with all sorts of interesting and different businesses. So this one happens to be a hair salon, and they have a really interesting differentiator. They are situated in West Roxbury, which it turns out is the oldest neighborhood in Boston, and their clientele is an older clientele. They are aged 50 to 90. I am within that range just barely, and so I'm the one saying older. So, but they are very loyal to the salon. They are very sort of family friendly. They try to bring people in. And so we put together a marketing plan, and we put it on this one-page format here. So she's got her target market right there. Fabulous. Unique value proposition, neat terms for what's your differentiator and what is the value you offer those customers. She caters to older folks, family friendly, welcoming environment, responsive to customers' needs. Here's what sets her business apart. What's the positioning? That's sort of, okay, you're a hair salon. These are important differentiators. What is it that you're saying on your website, on your social media? Great quality haircuts and services, consistent with market rates. Here's the pricing piece in there. They're neither higher nor lower, very consistent. The geographic reach. So this is the greater Boston area, focused in West Roxbury very specifically. Yours may be broader, very tightly defined, this particular street, this neighborhood, that type of thing. And what's the promotion strategy? So we're trying to increase visibility through setting up a website. I actually put a Wix website together for her, created a Facebook page for her. And then they did a cool thing, which the city of Boston offers an age and dementia friendly certification. You have to, do an application. They have to check you out. We'll go through a few hoops, but she became age and dementia certified through the work that we were doing. And we did a loyalty program for her as well. So then the final piece there is the metrics. What is it that we're measuring as a business? Total number of clients per week is what was really important to her. Customer satisfaction, asking customers, how we're doing, having repeat customers, and then social media followers, website traffic. Those were all really important. So to me, looking at it as a small business owner myself, having something like this that I could tack up on the wall, look at every once in a while online was really helpful to me. So I do that with my clients. Michaela, you have a question?
Sarah, are there any costs associated with having a marketing plan, or is it, would that be a barrier to someone starting a marketing plan? Any finances involved?
Right. So it's a great question. I think, you could use these tools to put together your own marketing plan. And in the end, the only cost associated with how are you going to put that website up? A lot of times, like Wix, you have to pay a little something to have a website. You may be able to find ways to get free websites. Social media, registering, getting yourself all set up on there, that's free. There's a lot of good free tools. I'm imagining the chamber might have some really good and interesting information and links that they could provide to you. So, do you need to pay to create a marketing plan? No, absolutely not. If you really want help doing it, that's where some costs may come in. I work with clients and I do get paid to create marketing plans. And it's really dependent on, what I do a lot of the time is sort of say, okay, how much time do you have? Let's figure out what we can do together. Because that to me is just, I wouldn't want the plan to be the barrier. The implementation can be the one thing that is difficult. Lots of times a business owner is the only one available to do social media posts, but it's a really difficult thing to have that time to do it. So finding out, could you delegate this to somebody? If you gave them sort of, here's a calendar, and could you plan this out? Could you, work with me on content? Could you actually do the posting? That's a really useful thing, I would say. Lots of times you can find some great tech savvy interns and, ways that it can be not as expensive, I would say, but don't have to pay, but there may be a few, pieces that will require some funding.
Right.
As well.
Awesome. That makes sense.
Okay, that's great. So now we'll wrap it up. Hopefully, yep, we're in good shape. To me, what are the keys to successful marketing? You know your business better than anybody else. So who better to think strategically about your business? There's a lot of information out there. Try and stick to what you need to know. Hopefully, I've given you some sort of food for thought for your business. Identify what sets your business apart, find out that target market, set practical goals and timelines, and try to stick to them. And then check your metrics, evaluate what's going on, figure out how are people getting to you. I think that one's sort of most important, probably, in the end, because all of these pieces work together to create, I think, a good marketing plan in the end. And then it can be a living kind of thing. Things change, right? The world changed, a little more than a year and a half ago. So you have to be aware that you need to change with the world sometimes. And it's great when things work really well, or you grow exactly in that exponential direction upward. But life doesn't work like that. It goes all over the place, doesn't it? And so, be prepared to go back to it. Maybe you do it every year. You take a look and say, hey, is this working? Is that actually my target market? I've seen a lot more of X, Y, or Z coming into my store or visiting my website. Maybe I need to think about them as a target market. Adjust your activities accordingly, that type of thing. So I would say those are the important pieces. If you have any questions, feel free, get in touch. I am more than happy to chat with anybody about what's going on with your marketing. To me, I love this stuff. I love learning about businesses. To me, it's really, really interesting. And there's usually a strategy you can put together. There's a way, and you definitely have differentiators. So just identify those.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
There
Yeah.
was one more question in the chat, going back to the finance part of things. Everyone, I hear this question come up in a lot of marketing webinars, but SEO services, that can get kind of expensive, right? So how do people approach SEOs?
So I'm not a huge fan of spending lots and lots of money on SEO. I do think it's important to look at your metrics and your maybe Google Analytics, which if you can connect your website to Google Analytics, it'll give you some great insights, and look at what people are searching for. And again, I'm a marketing strategist, so I'm looking at the big picture. I know there are a whole lot of SEO consultants out there who do great work. I would say if your business is solely internet driven and you don't have an actual physical presence, it probably points more in the direction of having an SEO service. And I understand why people want to, because you want to take it off your plate, right? And there are algorithms out there that are so hard to understand. It's really useful to have somebody looking at it. I would say I'm not sure it's worth investing huge amounts of money in. So I'd probably go, I tend to do this anyway. I try to go with other small businesses, and I try to ask around and get really good referrals from other people. I've been doing this about 6 years now on my own. I have kind of a group of people that I will refer to because I trust what they say. And I feel like they have given their clients answers that are, and solutions that are cost effective. But I also hear stories all the time about people paying thousands of dollars per month for SEO. And I personally would just say that's not the right thing for me. That would not be in my budget, and I wouldn't be able to afford that either. So it may work for some people, but ask around. That is one of the most valuable things I think you can find and find another small business owner who's in it to really help you and talks to you and gives you the results you're looking for. That would be the right kind of solution with the right price tag that would be useful for you or just works in your budget.
So Heather asked, what happens if you are targeting to different audiences? Should you have separate marketing plans for each target audience, i.e. youth, targeted adults, businesses, etc.?
So it's a great question. So what I would say is since you're one business, you want one plan, but that you may have different campaigns associated with your different target markets. So I was actually working with a botanical garden out in Boylston, Mass, Tower Hill. And we have three distinct, I'm not sharing things out of school here, three distinct target markets, but it all fits together in the plan. But there's a campaign associated with each. We did an interesting thing is we actually created a video, and there were three distinct target markets. And so there were segments of the video that reached out to each one of those target markets which was great. So it brought it all under the umbrella of, hey, this is, the all that we offer. But then we could pull out those little chunks and optimize those for social media. And then you could have some specific posts about, hey, families who we want to come to the gardens, here's the messaging about that. A little later in the week, we might say, hey, empty nesters, here's some great things that are happening for you. And hey, folks that don't have children who really are looking for some interesting things, beer gardens are coming later this summer, things like that. So in the end, you don't need to have separate plans. You can do it under one umbrella. You can also say, hey, this is my campaign associated with families. So I'm going to do this on social media, in email, and on my website. I'll rotate through a series of photos that are focused on families, and then I'll change it. And I'll, sort of go to my second target market and my third. So there's ways you can do it. And you can also, if you're really, in the, you can get to some details, you may have a mailing list that is all families, and you could do direct messaging to them. And you can also do social media ads that target, a specific population. So you can do it that way. So there's many different options available to you. I wouldn't say separate it out. In my mind, it's a great idea to have the umbrella so that you understand how you're marketing your company all across the board, but then do different campaigns for the different target markets.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. All right.
Any other questions? Does anyone else have any questions? Just so everyone knows, Sarah is open to do separate one-on-one sessions if you need more intensive help or maybe need to figure out how to do your own marketing strategy. I'm going to follow up with an email with all this information, her contact, a copy of the slides, and a recording of this workshop. So you'll have all of that information shortly.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It was great to share my favorite topic with you. And feel free, get in touch. Be happy to chat with you.